So this is my 2021 Trek MADONE SLR6, or at least it was an SLR6 until I had the Ultegra mechanical upgraded to Di2. Essentially, that was one of the biggest upgrades I wanted to have. I had the bike since early this year, but I've only been able to ride it in the last week or so because of the refit that I had done on it. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk about the stuff that I've done on it and what I've got on it and why. And I've put about 400k into it in the last 7 days. Yeah, it's a pretty special bike. I'll go into some of the more details about the things I've upgraded first of all, and then I'll talk a little bit about the ride and sort of what I think about it basically. So essentially, I've upgraded the Di2 system to the R8050 Ultegra system, the current one that's out at the moment. One of the reasons why I wanted to buy this bike essentially was I really like the look of integrated bikes where you don't have any cabling showing, and there are several. I had quite a few on my shortlist, but one of the reasons why I picked the Trek was because of the adjustability of the integrated system. Quite often a lot of the integrated systems are quite tricky to adjust. Not the case with the system that they've got fitted on the Trek MADONE. A lot of the finishing kit on these Treks are Bontrager finishing kits because obviously they own the Bontrager company. And what I'm going to do is just go through some of the upgrades that I've done to the bike and why I've done them, and essentially just talk about the last week of riding it. So starting at the front end with the handlebars, like I say, these are the standard aero bars that come fitted on it. They're 42 centimeters wide. Obviously all the cabling runs inside here. Got the Di2 charging port here. The only other thing that I've really upgraded on here is the bar tape that's on here, which I took off the standard Trek tape and put on lizard skin tape. I like the tackiness of it, but I also like the fact that you get an awful lot of support despite it being quite thin. Got the Garmin built-in holder that's on here. I'll talk a little bit about this huge unaero kind of camera mount on this in just a moment, and I'll also talk about the Garmin because there's something a bit more detailed about that I want to speak about. Coming down to the drivetrain, let's start with the pedals. They are Look Keo 2 Max pedals. Nothing special there. I've always ridden Look pedals. They're nice and light, nice and low profile. Nothing's really changed in the drivetrain apart from the fact that instead of it being 5236, I've moved it over to a 5234. I know you're not supposed to have a jump as big as that, but we all know as well that Shimano shifts quite easily between those two ratios. Obviously when I'm climbing, one of the things that I've been finding is the climbing is the thing that has the biggest impact in fatiguing my legs. So I am taking rides really, really easy at the minute. So the idea is that with the 34, that should make life a little bit easier. So the cassette on the back is an 1132 at the minute. I've also got an 1134 with the long cage mount on it so that can go straight on. This chain obviously is cut to length for the 32 at the moment. Once that's completely bedded in, that will come off, be waxed and lubed properly ready for the Grand Tour. And then when I get over to Brecon towards the end of the Grand Tour, I'll swap that out with a new chain and the 34 cassette so that I'll have essentially a straight through gear ratio, 34 front, 34 back. Should, fingers crossed, get me up pretty much anything that I have any problems with. The wheels are Bontrager Pro 51s. I've found them absolutely fantastic so far. They're 51mm deep. The sound of them and the ride on them, even in the wind, is absolutely fantastic. I've absolutely found no problem with them whatsoever compared to other wheels that I've ridden in the past, such as Zips. The tyres that are on there are just standard Bontrager tyres at the minute. They will get swapped out for a pair of Continental GP 5000 28mm, which will give me puncture protection and rolling resistance, but also give me a little bit of comfort on our fantastic British roads. They are hydraulic disc. I've never had a hydraulic disc brake bike. I've never had a disc brake bike before. Don't listen to what Chris Froome says. I don't know what he knows about bike riding, but I've found them absolutely fantastic so far. Obviously, I haven't ridden them in the rain, and obviously I'm not Chris Froome and I haven't put the miles in, but I have actually found them absolutely fantastic so far. On the other side of the drivetrain, I've got the 4i, 4 and 3 eyes power meter on the non-drive side. I was going to go for one of the rotor power meters, but it was a cost issue and I had to downgrade that. Let's face it, the bottom line is with this, it's not going to be a performance bike at the moment for me. I'm not going to be racing it. I've just got to ride steady. So as long as I know what the limitations of the power meter that I've got are, I should be absolutely fine. Now I have found it's reading quite low at the minute comparatively to the amount of effort I'm doing. I know this is super aero, but it's not going to give me the gains that the power meter is telling me at the minute. Now there are a couple of workarounds to that. I upgraded the firmware on it yesterday, and if that doesn't work, there is a bit of a trick with the battery that should see it read a little bit more accurately. Bottom line being that even if it doesn't, at least I know where my baseline is, because I will be doing a lot of riding on this, and I just have to adjust what my parameters are. I'm not a great believer in when somebody tells me their FTP is 320 watts, you know, it could be 280 watts on one power meter and 360 watts on another one. Coming up to here, we've got the Bontrager Elite saddle, which has got a nice groove down the middle. Like I say, I've put 400 kilometers into this bike so far, and I found it absolutely fantastic. No problems whatsoever. I'm not really a micro adjuster type rider anyway. I know Phil Burt talks about this idea that there are two types of riders. There's the micro adjuster who can feel a millimeter's change in their bike setup, and then you have normal people, I guess, that are like me, that I can pretty much hop on any bike and ride a couple of 100k on it and not really have any dramas with it. But I found this saddle okay so far, no problems whatsoever, considering it's quite light and aero. I don't think I'm going to need to swap this out for anything else as it stands at the moment. So coming to the front end here with the Garmin, I upgraded from a very, very old Garmin to the Garmin Edge 530. Now the reason for that mainly was for the mapping, but because when I got the Di2 fitted, I also had the Bluetooth chip fitted to it. It also has a lot of integration with the Garmin Edge 530, which I knew I would have, but I didn't realise all of the possibilities of what I'd have on this. Now with the buttons that are in the top of the shifters, which I didn't realise that were there, it means I can change the page functions quite easily. In fact, I can assign anything that I like to these buttons that are on top of the shifters here. So on this side at the minute, I've got page up and down, and then on this side I've got the map function that will immediately bring the map up and my directions on there, so I don't have to panic about trying to get my hand to the Garmin if I'm unsure about what direction I'm supposed to be taking. So one of the cool things that I wasn't aware of is underneath this saddle I've bought and mounted one of the Bontrager Flare RT bike lights, which is fantastic. You can see it at the moment, it's not on. It clips beautifully into the seat post and doesn't add any kind of like aero penalty or anything like that. It just neatly clips under there, and it's a fantastically good light. However, what I didn't realise is that you can also Bluetooth connect it to your Garmin, so that when you turn your Garmin on and you start your ride, it will switch itself on, and it will do the same in reverse as well. It will switch itself off too, which for somebody who grew up kind of like being absolutely fascinated by something like the Mavic Zip system, or lusting after the Shimano flight deck system, which was simply a wired computer that you could scroll up and down on the hoods of your handlebars. This sort of stuff absolutely blows my mind. Not least that it will also tell the drivers behind that I'm braking by when I put the brake hoods. When I start to brake on the bike, it will also glow brighter and act essentially as a brake light. So underneath the Garmin is this currently not very pretty camera mount that's on the same boss as the Garmin mount that fixes straight onto the handlebars. There's a GoPro mount underneath that I've got a quick release fitted to with this thread mount. It's currently being held together by this very natty looking yellow zip tie to hold it in position, because I'm looking to try and find the right place to get my 360 camera. Now obviously it's not the most aerodynamic of things at the moment, but obviously making these videos is an important part, not just of the grand tour that I'm doing, but also what I do all the time. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is try and find the best way, the best positions, try and get this so that it's nice and sleek underneath, and that I can record as I'm going along. But as I say, at the minute it's a bit of a work in progress, the idea being that this will all be slimmed down by the time I hit the road at the end of June. So as a slight addendum to that bit of video you've just seen there, I have spent a bit of time refining different iterations of the holder for the 360 camera, and it now looks like this. And so some of you might understandably be wondering why it's so important for me to have a camera on my bike. So I make weekly videos which at the moment are all about riding my bike, but sometimes about triathlon as well. And the 360 camera allows me to use various positions, so I can move the shot from something like this to something like this. And all sorts of different positions in between. Gives me a lot of options. Hence the reason why it's really important for me to have the holder on my bike. Look at the sheep, or goats. Goats on the side. So that is in essence my brand new beautiful bike, which I'm very, very proud of. Now I know that if you were to swap out the Ultegra for Dura Ace, this would be essentially what a lot of the pro riders are riding. The only difference really being that The difference between Dura-Race and Ultegra is purely the weight. I think you could give this to any pro rider and they would feel quite at home on it. But obviously I'm not a pro rider. I am essentially somebody who plays the drums for a living and doesn't ride a bike. But the way I kind of see that is when I go to a pub on the weekend, or back when we used to be able to go to pubs on the weekend, and there was a band playing who maybe play once or twice a month, and the drummer's got a drum kit like mine, and that's what I do for a living, then I look at them and I think fair play. You know, if you love something and you're passionate about it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with spending your hard-earned money on something beautiful, and that's how I feel about this, particularly considering that in my lifetime of riding bikes since the sort of mid-80s, since 1986, 1987, I've only ever had one brand new road bike, and that was in 1989, and it was a Halford's Carrera Corsa Speed that I rode and raced right the way into the late 90s. I even resprayed it twice. So this is my first ever brand new road bike. All of the other ones that I've ever had have been second hand. I've had a couple of brand new time trial bikes, but any of you that have a time trial bike will know that it's a very different beast riding a road bike to a time trial bike. Most people always say it's not about the bike, it's about the rider, and whilst that's absolutely true, you put a good rider on a good bike, they will go faster. I have found this to be spectacularly quick for the effort that I can put into it. It's extremely comfortable, and I'm very, very proud to have this, and I'm really looking forward to putting it through its paces for the rest of this year.